So let's begin here on DC-NUG, and let's double click on the icon for the vSphere web client to launch that. Just want to verify that the certificate being presented is not trusted. So occasionally this refreshes itself. So it says your connection is not private. We'll click on advanced. We'll scroll down and we'll do something we train our users never to do, and that is to go ahead and proceed to an unsafe website where the certificate cannot be verified. So sure enough, no surprise, it's indicating that our certificate that's being presented from the vCenter Server appliance cannot be verified. Because the vCenter Server appliance, as we connect to it, is using a self-signed certificate. So since we're here, let's log on as administrator at vsphere.local. We'll supply the lab password and click Login. I want to share with you a couple places where you can go and look at existing certificates on the vCenter Server appliance. And now regarding certificates, let's go ahead and hover over the home icon, and from the drop-down, let's select Administration. In the navigator under Administration, if we click on System Configuration under Deployment, and then if we click on Nodes under System Configuration, it'll show us our vCSA.nuggetlab.com. If we click on that to select it, and with that selected, if we click on the Manage tab right here, and under Manage, we go ahead and click on Certificate Authority. It wants us to verify our password for additional security, so we'll click on Verify Password. We'll supply our lab password. Once again, click OK. And here it's showing us our active certificates. There's also links for revoked certificates, expired certificates, and root certificates. So let's click on root certificates to begin with. And if we click on the only certificate that's there in chain 1, and if we want to look at the details, we can click on this icon right here to show the details for the highlighted certificate. So we'll click on Show Details. So the subject of the certificate is vCSA.nuggetlab.com, and the issuer is also vCSA.nuggetlab.com. It's a self-signed certificate that the CA service on this vCenter Server appliance is using for any certificates that it's handing out, whether it's handing them out to a service or whether it's handing out a signature on a certificate going out to an ESXi host. So I'm going to go ahead and expand my browser window for a moment here, just so we can see the OK button. So I can click on OK or cancel. Either way, it'll get us out. And then if we click on Active Certificates, here it shows us all of our active certificates. In fact, let's go ahead and click on this bottom one right here to select it, and then we'll use the icon for Show Details for Certificate. And in one of our labs on Auto Deploy, we brought up an ESXi host. And as a result, the vCenter Server Certificate Authority issued and signed a certificate that ESXi4 is using. Or at least when ESXi4 was powered on before we took him out, he was using. And we also have certificates for our other ESXi hosts as well. We'll click on Cancel here, and we go to this one right here, this fourth one up. And if we hover over it just right, the little pop-out will come up. So it's showing us here that the common name is ESXi1. And I would imagine that this one's ESXi2 and this one's ESXi3. That's the order that we brought them in initially in the lab as we brought those ESXi hosts into vCenter. So if we clicked on, for example, the third one from the bottom, and then clicked on the Show Details icon right here, that would confirm for us. So there's the common name issued by the vCenter Server Appliance Certificate Authority. And then if we wanted to see the certificates on an actual host, we could go ahead and hover over the home icon. From the drop-down, select Host and Clusters. So here in the Host and Clusters view, if we select, for example, ESXi2, and with ESXi2 selected, if we click on Configure, the Configure tab, and then underneath System, in the middle pane here, if we scroll down, underneath System, we have an option for Certificate. So if we click that, here's the certificate information. The subject is ESXi2. It was issued by the vCenter Server Appliance. And if we want to go ahead and renew that certificate, even though we don't need to yet, it's good for a while, but we can click on Renew and renew that certificate. And then we'll click on Yes to confirm, and then give that a moment to update and refresh. That's the Certificate Authority function on the vCenter Server Appliance, renewing the certificate for this ESXi host. So now that cert's updated. So let's do this. Let's press F11 if you're full screen. Go ahead and take Chrome out of full screen. And let's go ahead and close the vSphere web client altogether. And what we're going to do is we're going to launch PuTTY. There's a shortcut for it right here on the desktop. So we'll double click on PuTTY. Then we'll go ahead and click on vCSA and click on Open, and that'll open an SSH session from our management station over to the vCenter Server Appliance. And let me just rearrange this a little bit to put it over here on the right-hand side and make it a little bit bigger as well. So we're going to log on as root over to the vCenter Server Appliance. We'll supply our lab password. And I'll try that password again. And third or fourth time's a charm. Okay, so we're logged on, and we're going to type in shell, and that'll give us a shell that we can use to go ahead and work with and interact with the vCenter Server appliance. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to be using a Windows SCP copy program, and for that to work correctly, I need to go ahead and change the shell with the chsh command. We'll use a -h, press enter. So we're going to use a chsh-s, and then /bin/bash, so that the WinSCP program, the copy program, can work correctly. And we'll replace the H with an S, space, and do a /bin/bash. So if you're following along in the lab, make sure you do that as well, so that the WinSCP copy program will function correctly. All right, let's do a clear to clear the screen. And let's go ahead and launch the certificate manager here from the command line. So to launch this, it's in the folder of /usr/lib/vmca/bin/ and then the name of the program, which is certificate manager, and we'll press enter. And look at this thing of beauty. And we have lots of options here to replace certificates with certificates from our central CA server. We can replace just the machine SSL certificate, or we can replace the VMCA root certificate if we want it to be a subordinate CA. We can replace solution user like service account certificates with custom certificates, and there's also options to go back, including some revert options, generating new VMCA root certs, and then replacing certificates with VMCA certificates. So what we're going to do in this nugget is we're going to go ahead and swap out the machine SSL certificate on the vCenter Server appliance with a custom certificate that's been given to us by our corporate certificate authority, which is our Windows CA server. So here we're going to press 1 to replace machine SSL certificates with custom certificates. It wants us to authenticate. We'll press enter to accept the administrator at vsphere.local. We'll supply that password, which is our lab password. And then we're going to generate certificate signing request and private keys that can be used with the eventual digital certificate that will be issued from the certificate authority. So we'll press number 1 to generate a signing request and generate keys. It wants to know, where do you want to put these? And let's put them somewhere where we can find them. How about /var/tmp? That's a folder on the local file system of this vCenter Server appliance, and we'll press enter. And now, as part of this certificate signing request, it wants some of the details that will go into the eventual certificate once it's issued. So for country, we'll press enter to accept US. And let's name this new-vCSA-cert. That way when we see that name, we'll know exactly where this came from. Initially here is part of the certificate signing request, and once we get a certificate, it'll be part of the actual certificate we get from the CA. So we'll press enter. For the organization, I'm going to put CBT Nuggets. You're welcome to put whatever you'd like for your lab. For the organizational unit, I'm going to put in learning. For the state, I happen to be in Nevada. For the locality, I'm in Las Vegas. I'll leave off the IP address. I'll go ahead and use a bogus email of email@acme.com. And then here for the host name, it wants the fully qualified domain name of our system, which is vcsa.nuggetlab.com. So we'll supply vcsa.nuggetlab.com, press enter. And what it just did for us, it generated our private keys, which it put in a file called vmca_issued_key.key in the var/temp folder. It also generated for us a certificate signing request, and it put that in the same folder as well. And the certificate signing request is called vmca_issued_csr.csr. And then let's go ahead and press 2 and exit certificate manager. And that's because there's just too much, for me anyway, there's too much pressure to try to get that CSR, get a certificate issued, copy it all back over, and import it before there's a timeout. So just by exiting, we can go back in and we can recontinue at any time. So next, let's go ahead and click on this icon on the taskbar for WinSCP right here. We're going to use it to copy the certificate signing request from the vCenter Server appliance over to our local Windows workstation. So to do that, we'll go ahead and we'll double click on vCSA to connect to that vCenter Server appliance. We'll authenticate as root. We'll press enter a couple times. We'll supply the password. Click on OK. And it now has built a connection for us. So if we scroll down and we double click on the var folder on the right hand side, and then we double click on the temp folder, there is our certificate signing request file right there. So to make things nice and tidy, let's make a separate folder for certificate related stuff over on the Windows side, on the left hand side. So let's go ahead and go up the file system just by double clicking on this icon a few times until we're at the root of the C drive. And then let's click on this icon right here to create a new folder. And let's call it cert stuff and press enter. And then let's go ahead and double click on cert stuff. And let's drag and drop the certificate signing request from the right over to the left. Click on OK. And we'll go ahead and acknowledge any confirmation message. And it is there. Fantastic. So from here, what we want to do is we want to take the contents of this certificate signing request and effectively paste the contents into the enrollment window for our certificate authority on the Windows server. One really easy way of doing that is we could just go ahead and double click on the file right here inside of the WinSCP program. So we'll go ahead and double click on the CSR, and then we'll do a Control A to select everything in this certificate request. Then we'll do a Control C to copy everything in that certificate request to our clipboard. And then all we need to do is paste this request into our CA enrollment window on our Windows CA server. So to do that, we'll go ahead and use the icon for Chrome here in the taskbar. So we'll click on the icon for Chrome. We'll open up a connection to dc-nug.nuggetlab.com/certserve. It's already in our history because we tested that out in a previous Nugget. And then we'll go ahead and log on as administrator at nuggetlab.com. Click Login. Then we're going to click on this link right here to request a certificate. So we'll click on Request a Certificate. We're going to choose the Advanced Certificate Request. So we'll click on that link right here. And then we'll simply click inside this box and do a Control V, and that pastes the content of the vCenter Server Appliances certificate request into this request field. And then for the template, we're going to go ahead and borrow a web server template for the lab. Now, to learn more about the Windows CA service and managing certificates and working with templates, I invite you to check out course 70-742 right here at CBT Nuggets, which goes into greater detail on the Windows side regarding certificate services and all that, if you have interest in learning more specifically about the Windows side. So for now, with web server template selected and our certificate request pasted in, we'll go ahead and click on Submit. The certificate has been issued by the CA, and now we can go ahead and download it. We're going to click on the base 64 encoded option, and we have two options. We could download the actual certificate, this would be for the vCenter Server Appliance, or we could download the certificate chain, which is going to include the vCenter Server Appliances certificate as well as the root certificate. So let's go ahead and choose that second option because we're going to need both of those. So we'll click on Download Certificate Chain. Down here at the bottom of our window, it shows that it's been downloaded. We'll right click on that file in the bottom here. Let's click on Show in Folder to take us there. It's taking us to our Downloads folder, and there's the certnew.p7b. And if we double click on this certnew right here, it's going to open up the Certificate Manager. And if we expand that full screen, and I'm going to scooch this over a little bit to the right, we can then go ahead and expand the file, click on Certificates, and it shows us the two certificates that are being kept inside of this file. So what we can do here is we can just extract those one by one. We can extract the new vCSA cert, and we can also extract the root CA cert, because we're going to need them both into individual files. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and grab the new vCenter Server Appliance cert first. We'll right click on it. From the drop down, we'll hover over all tasks, and then we'll click on the export from the submenu. We'll click on next regarding the wizard. We'll select base 64 for the type. Click on next. We'll click on browse, and let's put this in our cert related folder we created a few moments ago. So we'll click on the C drive, double click on cert stuff, and let's name this new-vcsa-cert, and click on save, and click on next, and click on finish, and click on OK. And then we'll do the same type of export for the root certificate right here. So we'll select nuggetlab-dc-nug-ca, right click on it, hover over all tasks. From the submenu, click on export, click on next, click on base 64, click on next, click on browse. It's taking us now to that same folder of cert stuff, and let's name this root-cert because it's shorter. It'll add the .cer extension for us. We'll click on save, click on next, click on finish, and click on OK. And now we can close this cert manager. We've got the two certs that we need, so we'll close this window. Let's also go ahead and close the Microsoft Active Directory Certificate Services window. We're done with the enrollment. And we can also close the text file that has the contents for the certificate signing request. And now we want these two files, these two certificates, copied back over to the vCenter Server Appliance. So to do that, we'll click on one of them, for example, the root certificate, drag and drop it over on the right. It ends up in the temp folder, and then we'll click on the new vCSA cert, drag and drop it over from left to right. It's also now there. And now we're going to go back to our SSH shell, and we'll finish the import of our certificate so we can replace the existing SSL certificate, the self-signed one, that the vCenter Server appliance is currently using. So to do that, we'll go ahead and click on the icon here for our SSH session. So I did a clear, and let's use the up arrow key until we get back to the command to launch Certificate Manager once again. So we'll go ahead and launch Certificate Manager like we did previously. And we're going to use option number 1 again to replace machine SSL certificate. So we'll press 1, press enter, and now it's asking us to authenticate. So we'll press enter, and then supply our lab password. Press enter again. And now this time, instead of generating the certificate signing request and the keys, we're going to import the custom certificate and the keys we generated previously to replace our existing machine SSL certificate. So we're going to select 2 here and press enter. It's asking us for the custom certificate that we want to use. So the location of that is in var/tmp/ and we called that certificate new-vCSA-cert.cer. And we want to make sure that we get that exactly correct as far as the spelling and the location where it is in the file system. So we'll press enter regarding that custom certificate. Next, it's asking about the custom keys that are associated with that certificate. Now this would be our private keys. And the private keys, I'm going to go back and take a look. So the private keys are right here. It's vmca_issued_key.key. And that's what it's looking for right here regarding the key. So we'll type in the folder where it is, var/temp/ and the file is vmca_issued_key.key, and we'll press enter. And now it wants to know the signing certificate for the new certificate that we're about to install. Now this certificate that we got is from our root CA. And so the root CA is the person who signed this certificate. So here we're going to put the folder again, /var/tmp/ and then the root-cert.cer. So the 3 pieces here are the new certificate for the vCenter Server appliance, the associated private keys that go with that certificate and the public keys that are contained in that certificate, and the certificate for whoever signed the new certificate that we're trying to install. So inside the root certificate is the root's public keys, and we're going to use the root's public keys to go ahead and verify the digital signature of the root. Long story short, we need all 3 pieces for this to succeed. So with those in place, we'll press enter. It's asking us, are we sure? We're going to say Y for yes and press enter. And it's going to go to town. Now this is going to take quite a while. So it could actually be somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes for this to finish. Now have no fear. Through the magic of editing, I'll go ahead and bring us back to the point where it's completely done. And then together we can verify that the digital certificate is in place and working. It says it was successful. So we'll go ahead and type in exit to exit out of our shell here at the vCenter Server appliance, and we'll type in exit to exit out completely. And then we can also close the WinSCP program as well, because we're done with that. We'll click on OK to confirm. We can also close File Explorer. So now for the big test to see whether or not when we connect to the vCenter Server appliance, whether or not it appears as a good certificate that's accepted and verified, or a certificate that can't be verified. So if we double click on our vSphere web client again, and this is looking pretty good, so I'm happy about that. So up here it's showing a secure connection, HTTPS. It's kind of a green colorish, it's not red. So if we log on as administrator at vsphere.local and we supply the lab password and click login, I'm going to go ahead and save this password. It's a lot more eager to save passwords for us when the website is trusted. In this nugget, we've taken a look at an example how we can swap out a certificate on the vCenter Server appliance. And I invite you to practice what we've done together in this nugget in the hands-on labs that we've provided. So have some fun with that, and I'll see you in the next video. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.